A story named Cups, my Dirty Sheets book. A motel maid who rotates dirty sheets all day long. Pretty fascinating story. There's a lot of places in this book. When Lila arrived for her job at 6:30 a.m., rotating dirty sheets at the best budget motel, word was going around that a famous white pop singer had just spent 4.5 hours in this interstate dump with a 6'2" African Olympic runner. And the runner was stumbling around with clear plastic 5-inch spike heels, barely clinging to his huge feet. Plus, forward far enough to expose his kinky-haired chest. That's a story that's one of the longer pieces in the book, and it goes lots of many places. Give it a look. About my Dirty Sheets book, book critic Mike Irvin just recently wrote, Spiel's book is what you get when a poet writes prose. So, just short of rewarding you with the surprise at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box, without your enjoying the hunt for it, I'll be reading you just enough, hopefully, to tease you into seeking the prize in each of my stories and in my Dirty Sheets. Okay? This one's from a clip from a story called Motion. A woman who kind of goes crazy when the winds blow, and it was, of course, written one day here in Pueblo West up on our ridge where we get blown away every time major winds come. I see the people who live in Pueblo West doing this. The days when the winds come from all sides, it had seemed a dead set on driving Gidget crazy. And just when she was beginning to get her marbles back into their bag, if she thought she could sneak the truck keys out of Dexter's pocket, she'd buzz off to 7-Eleven to cop a pack of Marlboros. So what if it's been 3 years and 22 days since she's pumped the nicotine into her pipes? And these winds have Dexter picking at the sun moles on his temples. They're bleeding. He's done his best to stop Gidget's carping. Spent most of this morning removing a tin spoon from the disposal, then tinkering about until he's discovered the motor is beyond repair. Then tinkering about until he's discovered the motor is probably another $60. Damn! Where is it going to come from? Yesterday she had him crouched down scraping back black Velveeta off the oven walls from the cheese potato peels she made for the grandkids and messed up big time. What the heck was she doing yapping on the phone and staring out the window at Arnie Jensen while all that smothering black smoke was rolling into the TV room? Oh, that woman! These winds! I've come to recognize the huge influence on my writing by 20th century author Sherwood Anderson. His perceptive novel about a supposed community was first introduced as Winesburg, Ohio, 100 years ago. And what happens? Oh, it's where regular folks do irregular things. And it's not decidedly different from what happens between folks on our own main streets today. So, my Dirty Sheet stories are my 100th anniversary salute to the significance of Anderson's classic and influential book on me, Dark Struggles Looming Within. Just being human ain't easy, folks. Of course, I share the commonality of darkness with everyone who breathes, then speculates about the moment when they will no longer breathe. Anderson referred to his seemingly inimitable characters as grotesques. My characters act out a zany sort of irreverence. You be the judge if they'd best be portrayed as grotesques. I'm thinking of that clever old saying, everybody's crazy you and me, and sometimes I'm wondering about you. And a line from a 2003 poem of mine called Breaking Rules says, what we share in common in our darkness, the burdens of our closets, is where we lift our care. Yep, we're all outfitted with the capacity to care, and the jury is you. This little story, this is a short one. It's called Fraying. About a guy that works in a glass booth his whole life doing supposedly security guard in his horrible job. No one ever notices that Max's uniform is frayed. No one ever notices Max. Maybe Benny when he takes the shift at 4 a.m. Being a loser has always been the reason to come back to the booth one more time. Play the game again. Hope you'll win. Tomorrow. Sure as hell isn't the bare bones pay that keeps him coming. Every day of every year, time whittles a guy's self-respect. Eats him down to marrow. He gets a notion to head straight for a phone booth to change into his blue tights and red cape so he can save the mind-numbing planet from extinction. But phone booths are hard to come by these days. One of the longer and more complex stories, and one that I've gotten so much fabulous feedback on, is called Soda Crackers. This is an old woman who's just living with loss and loss upon loss, and she's in abject poverty. She shows signs of dementia, as most of you know, I also do. Those darn fool crazy kids have been doing their band practice in the garage out back of May's kitchen window since 10 o'clock last night. She can barely hear today's sad TV news about Ronald Reagan, our president. She's afraid to turn it any louder for fear the electric company will charge her more for excess consumption. Her old age pension check is already stretched as tight as the skin on her belly had been 62 years ago when she was pregnant with the twins, Laura and Lana. How could she forget that kind of stretch? She flits around her kitchen like a housefly seeking something it's had before but needs more of. She talks out loud to herself about how Reagan had sure greased up his hair with that slimy gob of Brill cream and all those flashback pictures the Today Show is playing. She thinks she never has slept with a man who greased his hair. So, are we the grotesques that Anderson referred to? In my character's realities, described as zany irreverence, the oddities of the consequences of human behavior have been a major focal point throughout my entire life as an artist and as a writer. The final line of my 2003 poem called Breaking Rules says, what we share in common in our darkness, the burdens of our closets is where we lift our care. I don't ever mind repeating that one. Now, in a story about an old man who had a teeny little gas station in western Kansas, this one comes. There's a really punchline thing in this story that you gotta go. Jim hauled his sponge bucket to their windshield straight off. He wanted to look at their pretty faces. Not much pretty around these parts. He watched Stephanie yank the twisted rubber bands off her ponytail, then shake her dishwater blonde hair out like a robin flutters its wings in a puddle. She winked at him through the clean window. Loretta R.S. was not so pretty like the others. Her eyebrows too big, her teeth too big. She pooched her lips, blew him a kiss. Both girls and the cocker spaniel were sweat soaked. Jim watched the rear view mirror that's duct taped to the door as Stephanie rolled her window down. Stinking body almost knocked him off his feet. The fan rattling, their air conditioners off. She says, "How's it going, old timer?" She had a flirty voice, kind of like Loretta Young in the old days on TV. This one called Nail Polish, not very long. I'm only reading little pieces out of all of these things. I think you understand that. This nail polish one is about a woman who was obsessed with the tortures at Abu Ghraib, and she was just watching the news constantly. Her curtains drawn tight, setting up buttered popcorn and a Coke each eve for the 5 o'clock news. Chloe's pupils expand as her heart bangs. First watching CBS News, then NBC at 5:30. Fifth time this week and the same for several weeks before. Oh, and what about that glimpse she once had of herself sitting on Russell Crowe's chest, ripping his fingernails out by the root one at a time while he writhed in ecstasy. Surely that had only been a horrid nightmare brought on by her sleep meds. Heavens to mercy, that could not have been the real her. Or maybe she'd seen it on the cover of National Enquirer while waiting in line at Safeway. Come on, folks, let's face it. All of us are peculiar creature creations with quirky behaviors in our otherwise commonplace lives. But we're barely surviving on the brink of normality. Oh, and by the way, I also have a second new book to introduce tonight, which Paul just picked up at the printers at 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's called Once Upon a Farm Report. And it's a charming little coming-of-age book, where you might find childhood experiences that resemble your own, growing up in a small American town during the 40s and 50s. I've only got a short run of 10 of these right now, but they're available over there. Actually, they're not all 10 of them left already. Here's a tidbit from one poem in that. I always claim that the best way to do poetry is to read it a spoonful at a time and then sit back and digest it. Maybe you might even figure out why the poem was written, and it may be about you or seem to be about you. This is just one line from the Once Upon a Farm Report poetry. Though this boy's heritage is the farm, his blood was contrary at birth, infused with the delicacy of an artist, his body as his brush, the farm his masterpiece. That's it, folks.